My first question is, there's been widespread reports that your office, as well as your colleagues, are going to continue to put pressure on China in the remaining weeks left in the administration. Can you forecast for us what some of your focus is going to be?
Kevin, I can tell you what we've done. Just last week, we had an executive order signed by the president, which cut off investment in Chinese companies that build the weapons to kill Americans. As to what else might transpire over the next several weeks, that's up for to the president to reveal. What I'd love to do for you, Kevin, is just to talk now a little bit about our bread and butter, which is the economy. And we had a bunch of things come out in terms of indicators today and over the last week. And for me, I think what's really important, and for the people of America, is to understand that we're moving towards what could be a precipice unless we get to a phase 4 deal. And if I may, let me just tell you the good, bad, and the ugly. I mean, if you look at the data, we had an incredible surge in consumption, 40% increase in the Q2, the highest on record. Home sales, both new and existing, are very, very robust. Durable goods is really a bright spot, core capital goods. And the GDP, as you know, comparing that to Great Britain, as you just said, is like we had a revision and it held at the 33%. And then the other good news about it is that the inflation is well below target. But here's the bad and the ugly. We saw uptick in unemployment insurance claims. We saw personal income go down. Now, both of those two things are related to what I describe as a trajectory of money that's been injected through the stimulus and relief package. And clearly, we're well past that peak. We're moving down into a place where the PPP program and the unemployment compensation programs.
Well, do you support Secretary Mnuchin's decision to try to put $426 billion back into a private account from the Federal Reserve? I mean, when so many states, as you know, are red states, blue states, are calling on there to be immediate assistance, why not just use the money that's already been allocated?
That's for Secretary Mnuchin to have that conversation with you, Kevin. But what I will say that I think needs to be done is in the phase 4, you've got a number of core things in there. The PPP program, which was the small loan program, was tremendously successful in helping small businesses, and it needs a top up. The problem we have, Kevin, is we're losing these small businesses, and what we learned from the crash in 08 and 09, that once you lose them, it's hard to get them back. So we really need to do that. We also need to extend unemployment insurance compensation, because all of that, by the end of December, that's all gone in terms of the emergency, and people are hurting. That's going to hurt consumer spending and the like. So that's necessary. And then we had a really good stimulus with that $1,200 check per person that went out. And I think that would be what we need, is a bridge, a fiscal bridge to the point where the vaccines kick in and we're able to get back to a semblance of a regular economy. Having said that, though, is we do have these structural adjustments that are going to have tremendous impacts that we're going to have to figure out how to wade through, and that's going to be difficult as well.
And you mentioned those small businesses. I've heard from a lot of them, and they don't need more debt. Their balance sheets are full of debt. They need grants. How realistic is that?
Taylor, the PPP was structured in a way that it was effectively a grant. They were forgivable loans, so if you got that money as a loan and you complied with the terms, which is to say that you kept people working, among other things, then that's forgiven. So there's really no difference. I think if you just give people money without those restrictions, I don't think you get to that same result. So
some of the concerns, though, are that that's only if they keep people on their payroll. They don't need those workers anymore because there's no business. How do you give them grants even if they have to permanently let these people go because there is no money coming in?
You raised the conundrum here, because, Taylor, what we see, and in your earlier segment, you were talking to somebody about how people are working remote and, when are they going to get back to full and all of that. I mean, we have profound structural adjustments that are primarily hitting our major metropolitan areas and restaurants, office buildings, the transportation sector. All of these things are going to change in ways which probably won't snap back to what they used to be. So we're going to have to figure that out. My own view is, and this is consistent with President Trump's philosophy, is that in order to offset the lost service sector jobs, we're going to have to make it up in manufacturing jobs, and that means bringing more of our manufacturing here. But you know, one of the bad news is part of the data was that our trade deficit went up. Our trade deficit's going up because we're buying more than we're selling. Part of that is because we are recovering faster than much of the rest of the world. But over time, what we got to do is create jobs here, and our best shot is going to be by creating manufacturing jobs, kind of in the Trump image, where particularly for blue-collar Americans.
Precisely, but I mean, you know, The Economist, and I'm on my Bloomberg terminal right now, and it says Wednesday's data indicates that the economic rebound is becoming more tenuous amid soaring coronavirus cases, fresh lockdowns, and an extended deadlock in Congress over a new stimulus package. The markets are anticipating that there's going to be additional stimulus. I don't want to go to the talking points of Republicans versus Democrats on why there hasn't been a stimulus deal, but how do you, well, for both of us, but how do you actually break through this? Because you're staring down a December 11th deadline to keep the government open. You've got coronavirus cases. Respectfully, the data disagrees with you that it's just impacting the cities. It's impacting the heartland just as much. So how do you actually provide this assistance, not in terms of long-term restructuring, but right here and right now?
Yeah, well, these are the questions, and I think the conversation you and I and Taylor are having is the way, I think, to break the impasse, because we're having, I think, an intelligent conversation about what I describe as the second derivative problem. The first derivative, it looks like things are still getting better, right? But the second derivative is they're getting better at a slower rate, which means eventually that flips. So what I see ahead is a chasm as all of these programs expire and we struggle with these structural adjustments. I take your point that the heartland's hurting as well, but I would say that it's the major metropolitan areas that disproportionately are suffering pain in these service sectors. But the point, Kevin and Taylor, is that let's have this conversation. What I'm sending out as a message to you and the American people today is we can see what's coming. And if we can see what's coming and it's bad, we need to be able to avoid it. And the way to avoid it is basically hit those 3 points of the compass in a phase 4 deal, which was the PPP small business loans, a stimulus check, and more relief for unemployed workers. And if we don't do that, there's going to be a lot of pain in America, particularly. Look, and this is these lockdowns are a regressive tax, meaning that they hurt the people least able to afford it the most. These are the lower income service sector workers that have been kicked to the curb by the virus from China. And you know, we intelligently, now the election's over, we as a country have to look at the chessboard and figure this out. But having this conversation is an important conversation to have.